This is Charlie Kao with TravelMole TV with João, who is the president of Turismo de Portugal. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
It's interesting about Portugal for me is everybody knows about the iconic places of Lisbon and Algarve. What does a typical Portuguese feel most proud about their country and like to recommend to visitors?
Well, it's a tough one because I don't think there's such a thing as a typical Portuguese. I'll give you my answer, which I think is pretty common. We are particularly proud of the way we are seen as magnificent hosts. In concrete terms, people feel extremely well received, warmly received, and they keep referring when we survey them and when they leave that they felt this genuine human warmth, which is rare to find as a traveler. So wherever you come from, wherever your age, wherever your occupation, you feeling welcome in a country is a big plus for a touristic destination. Of course, you have all the landscapes and all the beaches and the nice climate and the safety. All those are aspects which are attractive to tourists, but what makes a real difference is our hospitality, our walls.
And of course they have their favorite places to vacation. For example, I have a brother-in-law who loves northern Portugal for its small cities and villages and seaside resorts away from the big cities. Do those kind of places pull much of the visitors?
They're beginning to come into the picture. What is quite impressive and surprising is that in a country which is just 500 kilometers long from north to south and about 250 kilometers wide from east to west, in such a small country in comparative terms, you find such a diversity of things to see and to experience. Your brother-in-law is in the north, so he's probably somebody who's more comfortable away from the big rush and the big noise of the cities, and where he feels very much in touch with nature. We can find very good golf courses, where you can find extremely good rural lodging, where you can stay for a couple of nights within family homes, for instance, where nature is more exuberant than it is in the south. So it's one part of our offering. And we have a lot of those things both in continental Portugal and in the two archipelagos which are part of the country. The Madeira, which is a long-established touristic destination that the British started developing early in the 20th century, more cruise-based, with a very calm atmosphere, tepid waters, and very mild climate. And then the Azores. It's probably the most unspoiled territory in Europe. It's an archipelago of 9 islands, many of them totally unspoiled by man, and a fantastic destination for those who love wild nature at its purest. So Portugal does have a lot to offer in such a small territory. Some people refer to us as the country with the most concentrated diversity.
Staying on top of your competing destinations, one must always differentiate themselves. While Portugal is well known for its culture, history, the persona of its people, beach tourism, rural tourism and such, what kind of things do you work on other than that?
Yeah, you make a very fair point. It's very difficult to differentiate when basically 200 touristic destinations around the world all compete for basically the same tourists. So one exercise we did a couple of years back was to sort of study, observe, list and expose the marketing positioning of our major competitors. The major 10 or 20 competitors that we have for our major touristic products. And it's difficult to find a real differentiating message. So that led us to two conclusions, two decisions. One is that it's not worthwhile to communicate commercially, if you like, through advertising. Those type of differences, those type of characteristics that you think are going to distinguish you from your competitors, because the noise is just too large, and what is known as country branding is made of thousands of different impressions and not just the commercially advertising part of your communication. The second thing we decided was that we would do all of our communication online. So that allows us to not speaking for ourselves. It's not a self-congratulatory, pleasing, self-satisfying type of message. We don't say come to Portugal, it's great. We let those who come highlight the things that they really enjoy doing. And these days, online, we have the tools to make these opinions go faster, go further, very quickly, and with a lot of impact. So for the last 2 years, we haven't spent a single euro, single dollar, depending on where you're listening, in offline communication and advertising. We do everything online. So we do the traditional search engine optimizations to make sure that we are we are part of the choice shortlist of our potential tourists. But then what we make most of our efforts in, devote most of our efforts in, is finding and then spreading the nice messages, the nice user-generated content, the nice pictures and videos and opinions that visitors to Portugal have, and that makes a mosaic in which our distinctiveness emerges. So your question was, how do you differentiate? And after a while, the differentiation is that you see people talking about us, talking about again our genuine human warmth and affection towards foreigners and towards visitors to the country, and that makes a lot of difference over time.
We were speaking earlier about inclusive resorts and some other destinations, and you happened to mention that Algarve does not have that many. Describe a little bit, so they're more the typical hotel, resort?
Yes, standalone hotels with some activities associated. Some may have a golf course or an agreement with a golf course, or a sports activity, or water sports, but in general it's standalone type of units. Within resorts, for instance, sometimes it happens that there are large resorts with residential owners within the resort, not so much tourists. So it's a mixture between the second residence and residential tourism and hotel tourism, with the whole region providing the backdrop, both in terms of scenery and in terms of activities. This means that Portugal, and the Algarve in particular, has sort of skipped this stage of the tourist development a few decades back, in which all-inclusive appeared to be gaining some momentum. And by missing it, we were lucky that we were able to maintain a smaller scale, a more personal scale in the types of lodging and restaurants and touristic activities that we offer. And that again reinforces the human element, because we are not massified, we're not part of big hotel chains. And that allows us to cater more specifically to the specific interests of the tourist in that particular week or that particular day. So that was a lucky coincidence, but it works well.
I was framing two questions, and I think I came up with part of the answer. Because I know Portugal has had some economic woes, and I was thinking to myself, well, probably infrastructure development usually, gets delayed a little bit when you have other more pressing economic issues like jobs. Of course, some of that is infrastructure. And then I also realized, was thinking about air carrier capacity, which I know you've received a major share of inflow from the low-cost carriers throughout Europe. And it just struck me that they come for vacation, they go to a resort, and they don't need too much infrastructure to get around.
No, but in fact our infrastructure, namely in terms of transport, is quite modern from the time before the crisis and these economic woes that you referred to. So the big impact of the economic woes was to make people focus much more on what is essential in terms of tourism. Tourism is still one of the main, probably the main economic activity of the country, certainly the biggest exporter. So it has received a lot of attention from public policy and also from investment. But during those hard years, the point was, let's not do anything silly, because money is certainly not abundant. And that focus was very useful. It had another influence which is curious, looking back now 2 or 3 years, which is those people who had to reinvent their lives, had to find new careers or new jobs, suddenly had this great opportunity to go into business for themselves in tourism. So entrepreneurship in tourism has gone up significantly, and a lot of the innovation and the real nice new products, being again lodging, restoration, or touristic animation, in all those subsectors, new ideas from new entrepreneurs have come in, and they've added a lot to the overall quality of our touristic offerings. So yes, the crisis is never good, I'm not going to pretend otherwise, but it has positive aspects, and the focus that it brought and the lowering of opportunity costs, leading that many more people invested in their own money, their own jobs, is quite a positive effect. So we don't need a lot of infrastructure investment because we have a nice infrastructure both in terms of the country as a whole, transport, health, education, and the hotels. Some are older than others, obviously, but the occupancy rate is still low enough for us to allow a significant period of growth before we need to invest significantly again in hotels. And just one final message I think is important, I should have started here. We're extremely happy with the way that people have looked at Portugal over the recent years. Over the last 20 rolling months or so, we have grown almost 20% in our foreign arrivals and overnight stays, which is remarkable for a market which we have developed for the last 50 or 60 years. So it could be mature, it could be consolidated, but we have been able to reinvent it by this positioning that if you want a friendly country to come, we're not ostentatious, we're not the best at anything, it's just nice to come to, good value for money, and the nicest people you can find in Europe.
You're going to see me there this summer.
Thank you very much. It worked. Thank you.
Joao, Turismo de Portugal.
Well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.